Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Feni for the Soul for another interesting interview. This time it is Mallika Sarabhai. Mallika wears so many hats, so it's very difficult to, define her many talents. But, simply put, she is a dancer, an artist, a businesswoman, and an activist, all rolled into one. She has famously said in one of her interviews that these are qualities like strings from on the same instrument. And Mallika, of course, her name is synonymous with the Darpana Academy of Performing Arts of Ahmedabad, which produce such high quality dance dramas and musicals, and often hitting out at the injustice in society. Mallika is also the daughter of two very illustrious people, Padma Bhushan Mrinalini Sarabhai, who was a famous dancer, all of us know that, and Padma Vibhushan Vikram Sarabhai, who is also known as the father of the Indian space program, among his many other skills and talents. So without much ado, let's start talking to the wonderful Mallika. Good morning, Mallika.
Morning.
So happy to connect back with you after so many years. I'm so happy.
Indeed.
Yeah, because I'll come to the Pune connection a little later. But
Okay.
so the first question really is, I'll be showing some photographs also as we speak along. The first question is really about your parents, Mrinalini and Vikram Sarabhai. Now, they were both super achievers, as we all know. So what were the key lessons of life that you learned from them? This is a
Be
lovely
passionate
photo.
about what you
Can you
do.
see this
It
photograph,
is
Mallika?
indeed.
Yeah,
I can.
yeah. It's a lovely photograph.
So the point was that both of them were extremely passionate about what they did, and they were both very passionate about India. And I think if there's one takeaway that my brother Karthikeya and I have, it is to be passionate and to be passionate about the country. So whatever we do to try and make the country and the last citizen of the country better, have more dignity, have more justice, have a better life, have equality. And I think both of us, my brother and I, he through his environmental work and I through using the arts for change, have been doing that and will continue trying to do that. And in neither of my parents' life was there a hobby. Everything was a passion and everything was a career. And I think that's a bit like me as well. So I love watching movies, but I also produce and direct and act in movies and television. I love reading and I love writing. I'm a publisher. So when somebody says, what's a hobby? I'm not sure I have one. My hobbies are my careers.
Absolutely. So you are one of the very lucky ones, who's
I agree.
yeah. But then what is amazing is you have multiple hobbies and passions which are all verticals, like almost business verticals in your life, Yeah. I mean, and so I'll come to that. Okay. I move to your mother now. She and your dad, your father started Darpana in 1949. And from very early, Mrinalini ji made Darpana have a strong social commitment, from the very, very first day, I guess. And she did in the 1950s, she used dance to expose the horrors of dowry violence, especially in Gujarat state and across the country. And I believe you have said it in an interview that the late Prime Minister Pandit Nehru watched one of those dance performances and was so touched and moved that he, went ahead
He
and
set up an
introduced the
commission.
Anti-Dowry Act, in the Parliament and in the government. I'll show a photograph of your dear mother in 1950, dance sequence, Matsya Kanya. How beautiful is that? Yeah. So how inspiring was this, Mallika? My question is, how inspiring was all this as you were growing up?
Rahul, I thought that all dancers did that. That dance always spoke of injustice and always drew attention. So it was not really till much later, because growing up, I did not want to become a dancer. It was too much hard work, and I thought I don't have it in me. But much later, after meandering through various things, including a PhD in business and various other broken hearts and whatever, that I came to dance and realized how special Amma's work was. How special it was that somebody used a dance form or several dance forms to draw attention to what people wanted to sweep under the carpet. And my personal realization of this came even later, because I had always thought that I was an amazing medium for creators, but I wasn't a creator myself. When many years later, in 1984, I went away to do the Mahabharata in Paris with Peter Brook. Over the next 5 years, I created the role of Draupadi across the world and saw the effect of my interpretation of Draupadi on women of very, very different types, very sophisticated Aboriginal women in Africa, in Australia, Black women from Harlem, Parisians. And I thought, my God, this is really what I have to do. I have to use the arts to talk about all the things that bother me about the way the world runs. And it's post that I really became a creator. So my first work was in 1989 as I finished the Mahabharata, Shakti, the Power of Women, which spoke about the way language and the telling of history marginalizes and diminishes women. And it was, in many sense, a groundbreaking work, because I went away from only dance and I learned martial arts to show Rani of Jhansi, and I used theater and I used masks and I sang, and so it became a sort of performance art rather than a dance performance or a dance drama performance. And it was a major breakthrough for me. It was a major breakthrough. It was a one-woman show. It was a major breakthrough for, I think, contemporary performance in this country. And it was very exciting, and I suddenly understood the power of the arts firsthand.
Fantastic, fantastic. Because I was reading this very, very fine article by Henry Grau, the researcher, political activism and South Asian dance. The case of Mallika Sarabhai, where she's done a very good job in researching the entire background. So that's where she mentions this famous play Draupadi by Peter Brooks, and where you said that she quotes you saying, I became a performer who used activism and performance. Yeah. Earlier I was just a dancer and activist, but now I became a performer. So yeah. I think you've explained that already. I will move to the tragedy of the Gujarat Riots of 2002. And when that happened, it happened in your city, so you wrote an article in the Times of India almost instantly, which of course got a backlash, and then you that didn't stop you, and you went with two other activists and you filed a PIL, public interest litigation, in the Supreme Court against the government of Gujarat, holding them responsible for the riots. And I believe that the state government gave you a very rough time, Darpana and you a very rough time for a period of almost 15 months. How did you handle that
15 months? Phase? It still continues. It still continues. What do you mean 15 months? The Charity Commission came and sat and looked through our papers from 1949 onwards. They were here for 3 years. So no, the backlash continues even today. I was so horrified, I can't tell you. I live on the banks of the Sabarmati River, and across the river from where we are was a big Muslim settlement. And we could see and we could smell burning flesh. You could see dead bodies, half charred, in the river. And I thought, this in the name of religion, and this can't be stopped. And that article I accuse from the Dreyfus, famous French Dreyfus, Émile Zola play J'accuse, was just an outpouring of my horror and grief at what humanity could do to humanity. And I thought, the whole community is so terrified and in such a state that somebody had to speak for them. So with two activist friends, both journalists, we filed the PIL very early. And we thought somebody had to give them voice. And Rahul, coming from my family, with the privilege of such education and the privilege of being the daughter and niece and granddaughter of people who fought for India's freedom. My aunt Lakshmi, Amma's elder sister, was the commander-in-chief of the INA with Subhash Chandra Bose. My aunt Mridula used to dress as a man and during the partition go on a horse and get Muslim families to join with them and get Hindu women to join with their families. I couldn't not speak. I had a voice, and it had to be voiced for people who needed that voice. And yes, I suffer the ramifications even today. Darpana suffers the ramifications even today. But the great thing was that I didn't even ask my colleagues whether I should do this, but not one of them left. It was quite extraordinary that not a single person left because of the ramifications. And the ramifications were on all of them. You know, it was not only me. My colleagues would get phone calls saying, give us evidence against her or we'll abduct your children. All sorts of things, horrible things like that.
But you know, what is inspiring is that you held your head high and have, you know, certainly inspired a whole lot of Indians to do the same in you know, as we go about our lives even today. You know, this latest production of yours, I read a little about it yesterday, really. You know, Swakranti, the revolution within. You know, there was a very nice interview that this news portal in Australia did before your Sydney performance. So it's about an imaginary conversation with the father of the nation, you know, Mahatma Gandhi. So can you tell us a little about how you conceptualize this wonderful, you know, latest production?
It's actually not a latest production. I revived it for Australia because they wanted it. It's a performance that came out of the terrors and fears of mob violence, lynching, bombing that came as a repercussion of my having filed that PIL. So till 2005, I was being slapped with completely ridiculous cases. I had to go to the police station twice a day, every day, to prove I wasn't running away. I was out on bail. My passport had been taken away. And I used to often have these conversations in my head with Gandhiji, saying, I wonder if he was afraid. I wonder if he ever felt that he was putting his family to risk. And out of that came this performance. And it came as a part of a festival we run at Natrani called the Festival of Nonviolence Through the Arts. And it's a conversation where I ask Gandhiji whether he was afraid, but it's a conversation where I say, Gandhiji, did you follow other satyagrahis? And are you following them now? Because it's still happening, and you have inspired generations of satyagrahis across the world. And today, even more so, because today there are so many people protesting Black lives and protesting the brutal murder of 2 millions by the police. And unfortunately, today protesters are being slapped with horrendous laws and thrown into jail. So many of my own colleagues today are in jail or under threat, or including Umar yesterday and Apurva Nanda and Yogendra Yadav and people 2 days ago. That we live in times of dire censorship and fear that we will all be thrown into jail just by saying, I mean, I could be thrown into jail by saying what I've just said. And you could be thrown into jail for asking me that.
But we'll hold our head high. Yeah, but we'll still hold. Yes. we'll still hold our head high. I will move to, a very interesting photograph. Let me show you the photo first. Do you recognize this photo, Mallika?
Of course, Shivamani and me.
So, Shivamani and you, I shot this photograph a good 20 years back, I think, or 21.
I
19,
don't have it, Rahul. You must send it to me.
Of course, I'll send it to you. This was about 19 years back, I think, 2001, in Pune. And, Shiva had played live for that theatre production of yours. Yeah, performance. He played live on stage. And, I made you do this. I suggested that, or rather, I said, let's do something. And one of you, I think, or maybe you suggested that you'll do this. With your creative best, So it was a role reversal, literally, It's such a role reversal, such a fascinating photo. So my question really is, you in all your productions, you're given a lot of importance to combining good music, drama, choreography, and why do you think it is very, very important? That there should be a good combination and maybe fusion also.
For me, a production starts with the question, what is burning inside me that I want to speak about? And it doesn't have to be an issue. That burning can be a piece of music I've heard, or it can be a visual I've seen, but it's still a burning to communicate that. And then I say, to whom do I want to communicate it? And that determines what tools from my toolkit I use, or whether I need to acquire new tools to do that. So for instance, my latest production is called Colors of Her Heart, and we toured America with it. We would have been touring India with it just now, but for COVID. And I have always been fascinated with Indian Tal and the Bharatanatyam speaking of what we call shoulders. Takadimatam, takadima, takadimitam, tam. And then, this was before Gully Boy, I came across the work of the group that created some of the music for Gully Boy and saw that they were combining spoken word, hip hop, rap with Tala. And so I went to them and had them create a piece. It's called Good Girls. And it's about how good girls mustn't look in the eye, how good girls must adjust, how good girls don't look up, how good girls always follow instructions, and so on. And it's a satirical piece in this. So we learned how to rap for that because I felt that it was correct for them. So we did rap Bharatanatyam, and it's great fun. So I try and engage with things that I have heard or I imagine, and now I have a lot of musician friends with whom I imagine things and say, suppose we were to do this, how would it work? Or at the moment I'm working on 2 or 3 different creations for the digital medium, and I'd say, I'm going to read out a text to you and see what you feel musically to it. And somebody will send something, somebody will send something else. And that's really how I work. So it's a question of what I want to say, to whom do I want to say it, and how is it said best.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Finally, Mallika, I am tempted to ask you this question that, you have always, I think your mother was a very strong role model for you. She stood up for women's rights from the very beginning. I spoke about that Anti-Dowry Act that came thanks to her dance performances. I mean, at least inspired by her dance performances. And then the way you have, taken charge of your life. So people call you a feminist. They call you a very strong woman. And so why is it important to assert, that, to talk for the women of India or for the women of the world for that matter?
I think I think, yes, I'm certainly a feminist, but I think I'm a humanist. And I feel that in my position of privilege, in my position of somebody who is listened to, in my position as somebody who doesn't bullshit and never has, and I'm always trying to speak the truth about my life to give it an example of what can be done. I think it is a waste of my life if I do not fight for those who can't fight for themselves. I want a just world. I want a humane world. I want a world where we respect everybody, where we give them space as long as they are not being violent, where we respect the earth. And if these people can't speak, if the Dalit voice needs to be heard, or if the Adivasi voice needs to be heard, or if a woman's voice needs to be heard, then I am here to do so, because in my palette, I have many things I can do to get across to you, however prejudiced you are. I might not be able to get through to you if I speak to you about toxic masculinity. But if I do a very witty piece about toxic masculinity, you are going to come to watch it because it's a witty piece, it's a great performance, but somewhere it's going to seep into your head. And that's why I think that all of us need to do this, because India is at such a terrible position just now. Everything is falling apart. Very, very calculatedly, it is being made to fall apart, whether it's institutions or whether it's our courts or whether it's a financial situation, whether it's the unemployment issue. And each of us who has a voice must use it. We can no longer sit and watch this world fall apart.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. So, Malika, I think it was lovely, thank you for sparing this time and coming on this, YouTube channel of ours, Feni for the Soul. And, once all this things become a little more normal, I'm going to visit Ahmedabad and, see Darpana from close, from
Please
up close. It's a things to do list, certainly. Thank you very much. God bless Team Darpana.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.